Welcome to an audio-only episode on Crafty Stacks. My name is Zen Water Cooler. The channel is called Crafty Stacks, but I do have another channel called Zen Water Cooler, so make sure to check that out. I always hate it when you start watching a video or when you start listening to a podcast and people are begging you to like and subscribe. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's go out on a date first before you pop out the engagement ring. So don't like this and don't subscribe until you listen to the podcast and you find it valuable. That would be helpful because that tells me that it's actually working for you. I love comments and feedback. So if there's something you want me to discuss, let me know. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Creative Fabrica specifically and about selling on Creative Fabrica. Now, I want to be very clear as we jump in here. This is going to be a deep dive. I'm going to be going all over the map. I've got a couple notes that I'll speak on. But otherwise, I'm going to be sharing my personal experience and my personal thoughts about selling digital designs on Creative Fabrica. And I wanted to mention this because I've seen some criticisms on Reddit. Okay, confession time. I've got a very nasty habit in my life that I like to go on Reddit, which is this app or website. And there's these things called subreddits, and people can kind of complain about life on these subreddits. Well, one of the subreddits is print on demand, another one is about passive income, and another one mentions Creative Fabrica, specifically selling on Creative Fabrica. And I was a little dismayed because I saw a couple people posting about selling on Creative Fabrica. They hadn't made a lot of money, and one person said that they thought selling on Creative Fabrica was a scam. And I was like, well, that's pretty strong language. I'd like to share my experience in this podcast. Selling on Creative Fabrica is definitely not a scam, and I'm going to hopefully convince you that that's the case. Now, I want to point out as we jump in, I am an affiliate on Creative Fabrica. So on my Zen Water Cooler channel, I do talk about Creative Fabrica designs. I do promote designs that I think are really cool. I never promote my own designs because I think it's a conflict of interest. I only promote designs from other people, bundles, things like that. But I do sell anonymously on Creative Fabrica. I never reveal my store because I don't want anybody to ever think I'm leveraging my podcast or my YouTube channels to try to sell my own designs. I think that's kind of sleazy, so I've never done it, never will do it. That having been said, I do sell designs on Creative Fabrica under a different name. It has nothing to do with this this YouTube channel or Zen Water Cooler channel. So my training hat comes off and my designer hat goes on when I sell on Creative Fabrica. So the reason I mention this is because I feel like sometimes people wonder about the authenticity or the motives when people start talking about selling on a website. So I want to be very clear. I don't really care if you sell on Creative Fabrica. I'm not going to try to convince you and then click on the link and all of a sudden I can put my kids through college. That's not the way this is going to work. If you would like to make passive income, and if you're good at creating digital downloads, then Creative Fabrica can be a great option for you. The end. I don't have an affiliate link about this. I don't make any money if you sell on Creative Fabrica. In fact, you could argue you're my competition in this case if I'm trying to sell designs and you're trying to sell my designs. But I'm such a huge fan of the website, and I'm such a huge fan that it's been able to pay me basically passive income, or as close to passive as I can make it, that I would like to share not as Zen Water Cooler, the affiliate, but rather as Crafty Stacks, the designer, and say, hey, this has been my experience, and it's a huge world out there, and I think there's room for all of us to make some money. So some criticisms on Reddit that I've heard that I don't think are true is it's a scam. Okay, so Creative Fabrica is definitely not a scam. It's a legitimate website. People buy designs on there. They have memberships on there. And I've heard overwhelmingly positive things about Creative Fabrica from a consumer perspective. They've also got a thing out called Studio, Creative Fabrica Studio. And so people will use Studio to create designs and they can use the assets that are inside of Creative Fabrica. Another criticism that I've heard is that you can't make any real money on Creative Fabrica. And I'm confused by this one because I don't know where it's coming from because, of course, I can't see the individual's store when they make this complaint. I will say I have two stores on Creative Fabrica. One is a relatively large, beefed up store that I've had for years and years, and another one is a relatively new store that I'm growing. It's a completely different branded store, so I wanted to separate them out. I also thought it would be a good excuse for me to try to grow a store again from scratch and just see what sort of troubles I run into, because it helps me as a trainer and as a facilitator. I can definitely say that the bigger store that I have definitely makes some money, some real money, like a couple $100s a month money. And these are based on sales. It's also based on the listings that I have, and it's also based on some of the subscription income. So one of the complaints that I've heard on Reddit about Creative Fabrica, selling on Creative Fabrica, that's actually true, is the criticism is that Creative Fabrica is not transparent about how people make money on Creative Fabrica. And I would agree with that. I would say that there is a formula that they use, and it's basically a pool of money for subscriptions, and a bunch goes to the artist and a bunch the company keeps. And then if somebody purchases an individual design, you would get a portion and the company would get a portion. But there, you don't see any actual customer information. So I don't know, I can't prove to you that I've made sales. Money just kind of shows up in the account, right? So I get it. That can be frustrating because you might be thinking, oh, as a graphic designer, they're ripping me off. All I would say is, at some point, if you're going to use another website to make money, in this case, Creative Fabrica, at some point I would feel you have to trust that the company's got your best interest in mind as well as their own. I don't think they're going to set up a multi-million-dollar overhead company website that's got millions of designs simply to screw you out of $5 in passive income a month. It just seems weird to me that they would do that. But again, to each their own, right? I personally had a poor experience selling on Etsy because the Etsy gods determined that I was somehow breaking rules, even though I like to think I'm pretty good, rule follower. And I like to think I'm pretty knowledgeable about print on demand and about digital downloads. So I've had a bad experience with Etsy in the past. However, I've helped friends set up on Etsy and we've had great success. So we've got partnerships. I don't have the bandwidth to run full-time Etsy stores myself, but I've partnered with friends in my real life where I go in, I help them out, they help run the store. Between the two of us, we split the income, and it's pretty good. So I'm definitely involved in Etsy. I just don't have a store under my name solo because I simply don't have the bandwidth for it. But I would like to talk a bit about why I like Creative Fabrica versus Etsy. So I want to be very clear. I don't care if you agree or disagree, in the sense that I'm not trying to sell you something in this podcast. This is just my experience selling on Creative Fabrica, and I'm sharing it with you as a friend, thinking, hey, if you'd like to make some Creative Fabrica income, some passive income, this might be a great opportunity versus Etsy. So the first thing I really like about Creative Fabrica is that it's free to list. You could just go in and list as many items, bundles, fonts, graphics that you want. Whereas with Etsy, you have to pay to list. And that can really add up. Even if you have a shop with 200 listings, that does add up over time. In fact, Creative Fabrica pays you to list. And what I mean by that is, not only would you make money off of a sale, but you would also make money every month because the pooled income of subscription money is doled out to the individual artist based on the amount of designs that you have. So if you have a tiny shop with a few listings, you'll make minuscule amounts, pennies. If you have a massive shop with a ton of designs, you'll make more money based on the pooled aggregate money that comes in. Now look, is it going to be thousands of dollars a month? No. But I will say it is motivating if you make $2, $6, $8, whatever the amount is every month based on the subscription income. That's truly passive income. I'm not doing anything to earn that other than be part of a larger group that has a lot of subscribers. So I try to frame how I look at Creative Fabrica that I'm an artist, I'm on their website, and I'm getting a commission when I sell something. If it doesn't work for you, if you prefer to have more visibility over the customer interface and you personally would like to interact with the customer, then Etsy might be a better way to go. For me personally, I don't want that. I have a YouTube channel. I have 2 YouTube channels, and I also have a full-time job. So for me, I just want to create. I don't really want to work the customer service piece, and Creative Fabrica lets me do that. I can simply upload a design a night or a few designs on the weekend, and it just, life goes on. It just ticks along slowly as if I was publishing a book on Amazon KDP, or I was uploading a design on Redbubble, It's a very similar mindset in my life. Another reason I really like Creative Fabrica is that they only sell digital downloads. They don't sell any physical goods. And I find Etsy can be a bit confusing in that regard. They not only sell vintage items, but they also sell print-on-demand items. And then, of course, they sell the digital downloads. So it can be a very clunky, very busy marketplace on Etsy if you're only trying to sell digital designs. Again, I'm not saying Etsy's not right for you. I'm just saying for myself, I prefer selling on Creative Fabrica in some ways, or I partner with someone else who's really into Etsy because Etsy's got a fantastic customer base. So it's just different flavors for different people. So I do actually like the Creative Fabrica subscription service. And this is another point, a sore point that was on Reddit. People were saying, well, they're not very transparent with the subscription income, and it's just come down to pennies on the dollar, and I don't really want to deal with that. Hey, fair enough, not a problem. I personally like the subscription service, and the reason I do, it's twofold. On the one hand, there's less people buying your product. Okay, that's the negative piece, because if you have a subscription, you're not getting a purchase. You're just getting somebody clicking the download button. Okay, so that's the downside. But there's two things that I really like when you have the subscription-based model. One is more people are taking a chance on just downloading your stuff. So if you have a subscription to Creative Fabrica, you're not necessarily thinking about quote unquote purchasing something. You could just download it on a whim and see if you like it. So the barrier of entry is much lower for a customer to go in and buy something. It's basically they have unlimited access and they can just download whatever they want, whenever they want. So although the income is low with the subscription model, it is not zero. And if you have a lot of designs, especially popular designs, you're going to have more people just taking a shot. They don't have to worry about paying $5, $10, $20 for a design. They just go, I'll give this a try. The other thing I like is I do think the subscription model is growing over time. So this is what I call having wind at your back. When you're working in a marketplace, you want to ask yourself, is the marketplace growing or is it shrinking? And I do think that the marketplace is growing in the sense that more and more people are discovering Creative Fabrica. More and more designs are coming onto Creative Fabrica, more and more fonts, illustrations, graphics, mockups. And as such, the value overall of the Creative Fabrica subscription grows. It eventually gets to the point where somebody who's maybe on the fence about purchasing it looks at it and says, well, this is such a no-brainer. It keeps growing every month. There's lots and lots of great things in there. I'd rather just pay the subscription and then I get access to everything. Okay, so the question becomes, how do you actually make real money selling on Creative Fabrica? Or anywhere for that matter. It's going to be very similar answers. Having a passive income mindset to me can be a positive. It could also be a negative because there's things inside that passive income mindset that maybe will apply to Creative Fabrica, and there's other things that maybe won't. When I talk about a passive income mindset, what I mean when I say passive income is that you're not directly dealing with the customer and you're not directly dealing with the website. So what you're really doing is just uploading designs, making sure they're tagged properly and you have a nice description, and then that's it, you're done. You're not actively promoting it. You're not dealing with Nancy in Idaho asking you questions about how the download works. This isn't Etsy in that regard. So it's much more passive in the sense that you're just a designer and you're just designing and uploading and that's it. So the passive income mindset to me is very powerful in the sense that you can focus more time on creating. So this is a very long-term strategy. I want to share with you sort of a thought experiment that you can run, which will maybe help motivate you long-term. So imagine that you're 18 years old and you start working for the government or a really large company that has a pension. Now, I understand this is a global podcast, so the terminology might be a bit different. If you have a pension or maybe a 401k or some sort of a retirement fund, and remember, you're 18 years old in this thought experiment, so you're not going to be retiring for decades. You're going to go to 18 to 28 to 38, 48, 58, finally to 65, and you decide to retire. Well, that's a lot of years that you're going to be working in that environment. You might make well over $1 million working in that company, and then you declare yourself retired, and you're going to start drawing a pension. Well, that pension may be $1,000 a month. That pension might be $1,500 a month, $3,000 a month. But if you don't put in the time, So if you've got a coworker who shows up and they're 63 years old and they work for 2 years, their pension might be $20 a month because they only worked there for a couple of years. So what I'm trying to say is that you want to have a long-term strategy when you're building up your portfolio. And this is true whether you're working in Creative Fabrica or Etsy or Amazon KDP or Redbubble or your own website. Whatever you're selling, you want to have a long-term strategy. You're going to be putting in a lot of hours over your life to build up $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. So I look at it like my pension. If somebody said to me, hey, you're going to work for 20 years and you're going to draw a $500 a month pension, it's like, well, that's pretty nice, especially if I'm working in my house coat and I'm uploading designs that I like. So that's another thing I like about Creative Fabrica is there's just no noise. I don't have a boss. I don't have clients asking me for stuff. I'm not running surveys. I'm just simply uploading what I like. So it's just niche research and then creative design skills. And when I get that done, I can be proud of what I've uploaded, and I think I'm fulfilling a niche, but I can double check my statistics long term to see if that's true. And when I say statistics, I don't mean sales, but what I do mean is the likes and the hearts and the follows that I'm getting. You can look in Creative Fabrica and you can see out of your 100 designs you've uploaded, which ones are getting the most favorites. And you're probably going to find there's 2 or 3 that have the majority of the favorites. And if that's the case, you'd want to make more of those designs. Even though you don't have any evidence that you've sold anything, you just want to make sure you're uploading designs that are similar to the ones that seem to be the most popular, because logic would dictate that the sales would follow. So similar to being an author, you'd want to have a portfolio of designs, similar to the way an author has a portfolio of books. Now imagine the most popular authors. You want to think of, like, for example, Stephen King. When you think of Stephen King, what do you think of? Well, you think of horror books. He's not writing some nonfiction Renaissance artwork book. You're like, huh. Then you think of Dan Brown, right? That's the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code. Well, that's like a style of book. You think of really popular film franchises, right? Like Indiana Jones or Star Wars. These are all very similar branded items. So you'd want to have your store in a similar vein. Now, I'm not suggesting you make only one type of design, but you could certainly, once you get it going and you've maybe uploaded 100 designs, see which ones are getting the most favorites and then skew your store to that thing. So for example, if you upload 10 product mock-ups and you upload 10 cat pictures, 10 funny t-shirt designs, 10 teaching materials, and then you realize, oh, the funny cat designs are getting way more likes than everything else. Okay, well, that's the universe telling you make more funny cat designs. You might be really good at certain types of designs. And if that's the case, you may just decide, I'm going all in on this type of design because it's kind of the only thing I can make and I'm very, very good at it. Great. That's another reason why you could brand your store. You probably want to have a combination of the two. So if you picture just with passive income in general, so this is not just going to apply to Creative Fabrica, but to any opportunity that's passive income. It could be Amazon KDP, it could be Redbubble, doesn't matter. You want to have on the left side of your piece of loose leaf paper, when you're writing this out or on your spreadsheet, all the different ideas that you have. And then on the right, you'd want to have your pipeline on how to get those ideas out to customers. So for example, I consider myself to be a pretty good facilitator, a pretty good public speaker. Okay, so what are my options now to make passive income doing that? Well, I could have a YouTube channel, that's a pipeline. I could create my own course and sell that, that's a pipeline. I could go in person to a university or a college and I could try to teach, that's a pipeline. I could go on some public speaking tour, that's a pipeline. I could do audiobooks, that's a pipeline. I can't do them all though, so I need to choose what I really enjoy doing and what I'm good at doing. I really like YouTube. I like the interface. I like the way it works. I like doing YouTube videos and podcasts. So to me, it's pretty easy. It's a nice way for me to unwind in the evening. It's the same thing with graphic design. I like making graphic design projects. So knowing that that's true, I ask myself, what are the opportunities for me to sell these graphic design projects? There's Etsy, there's Creative Fabrica, there's a couple other similar sites to that. So I need to pick one or two and say, that's what I'm going to run with. Now, I really like Creative Fabrica because you can brand a store. And what I mean by branding a store is having certain types of products and or having certain types of designs. So if you're really good with a camera and you've got an interesting eye for detail, maybe you do product mock-ups. If you're a graphic designer and you're in Photoshop, maybe you do t-shirt designs. There's all sorts of different things on Creative Fabrica. If you go up to the top menu and you start looking at different things, there's more than just t-shirt designs. There's just tons and tons. Like, I know a store, I saw it the other day, they only sell fonts. They have 100 fonts listed on their site, on their Creative Fabrica store, and they have tens of thousands of favorites off of 100 fonts. Now, these fonts are beautiful. They have awesome thumbnails. It's obviously a huge deal to create a font, but that's the store's specialty. They're the font store, or they're the emo store, or they're the horror store. Whatever the store is, whatever the brand of the store is, that's what you want to run with, because people are going to like and follow you if they know that that's what you're going to crank out on a regular basis. It's the same thing with this channel, right? Crafty Stacks talks about really two things: selling digital designs and also public domain or free cool stuff. So that's the brand of the channel. And if I started publishing my personal photos of my trip to Italy, you might all start wondering, like, well, what's this guy doing? Has he fallen, and hit his head? It's like, no, I'm just trying something new. And it's like, people don't want something new. They want more of the same thing that works really well. Now, I can do a little bit of variance here and there, but from a passive income stream, I want to make sure my store is branded, whether it's my Creative Fabrica store or my Amazon KDP portfolio or my YouTube channels. So it's all coming back to how people view me instantly. So I would say pay attention to your likes that you're getting, your favorites on Creative Fabrica. They're little heart icons, and you can go up to your seller dashboard, your store dashboard, and you can see how many favorites you have for each listing. And over time, you'll notice a trend. Oh, these sorts of designs seem to get me a lot more likes and a lot more favorites than certain other designs. I want to say as well, there's no shame in giving up. I know this is totally against the code on YouTube where you're supposed to be publishing nonstop motivational videos. Keep going, you're a winner. Yeah, that's fine. But if you're not enjoying it and you're not making any sales and you've been doing it for like a year, well, then maybe it's not for you. Like, maybe you're not very good at it. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. So I just want to point that out there, that I think we sometimes are shamed when we quit something, but there's nothing wrong with quitting, because I would rather fail 20 times and then succeed on the 21st time than stick with the same thing. And for the next 20 years now, I'm miserable because I'm doing something I'm not very good at. I'm not making any money. It's like, oh, it's okay. Move on to something else. You might be really good on another platform, or you might be really good selling a different type of design. I will say there's 3 things that make you successful on Creative Fabrica. So I'm going to talk about how to succeed. Now, there's always going to be exceptions to what I'm about to say. So I understand there's sometimes negative Nellies out there that go, well, what about this and what about that? Totally get it. But I'm going to be talking about the majority of people, regular people like you and me, that are selling on Creative Fabrica. Generally speaking, the more designs you can have, the better. And I get it. People are going to say, well, what about this store that only has 10 designs and they're doing really well? Great. Then they're probably doing one of the other key points. And even though they don't have a lot of designs, they're crushing it. And I say, hey, good for them. But generally speaking, if you're selling digital designs, you'd want to have enough designs in your store that there's a tipping point where people go, oh, I'm going to like and follow this guy. He's consistently turning out product that I enjoy and I could consume on a regular basis. And that leads me to the second key success metric, which is having high quality designs. Now, that's a very vague statement, and I've gotten some flack over the years on it because people will say, well, I don't know what high quality means. Right. If everybody knew what high quality meant, everybody would produce high quality designs and everybody would be a millionaire, billionaire. So the trick is you want to find what I call an unfair advantage. And what I mean by this is nothing unethical at all. But ask yourself, what are you really good at? And what do you find really easy that maybe other people don't? So I'll just give you an example. So for myself, I consider myself a pretty funny guy. I can look at a picture or a regular design and I can make it funny. I can twist it in a way where it's like, oh, that's pretty easy. Other people can't do that. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just they just don't have that skill set. So I have that unfair advantage in the sense that I can look at something and make it funny. You might have an unfair advantage where you've got a graphic design background that completely kicks my butt, and you can make designs that are so amazing that they blow anything out of the water that I make. Awesome. We're in completely different niches at that point. We are not worrying about competing directly with each other. You might have a really high-end graphics design program. Maybe you've purchased a high-end subscription, or you've got super high-end artificial intelligence. Maybe you've paid a subscription to DALL-E or something that's really high-end. And it's like, if that's the case, great. That's an unfair advantage too. Maybe you've got extensive Midjourney tech background and you work with Midjourney as part of your regular job. So in the evenings, just to relax, you crank out these amazing, ridiculously wonderful designs that a normal guy like me can't process. Like, wonderful. So that's another way that you could have an unfair advantage. You might be really good with photography. You might have access to a location on Earth that I don't have. And all of a sudden you're making these spectacular mock-ups that a normal guy like me living in Canada doesn't have access to. So it's like, if your backyard is really interesting, maybe you have an unfair advantage simply due to your location. So I'm not saying an unfair advantage in the way that you're cheating. I'm just saying, ask yourself, how can I compete in such a way that gives me an advantage over somebody else? The third metric for success on Creative Fabrica is you want to have keywords and niches. And I consider this to be the same thing, by the way. But keywords and niches, they must be in your favor. So I'm going to talk about keywords first. Keywords is simply the amount of keywords that you put into your design. So when you're listing a design, you can list keywords. You want to try to maximize that out, or at least have a couple in there like that are really good. So you don't want to just have like 3 or 4 and then go, man, nobody can find my design. You want to have lots of keywords in there and lots of high quality keywords in there. The niches, I consider it to almost be the same thing because people are really searching by keyword, but you want to have niches, meaning the type of product that you're selling. You want to have that be high demand and low competition. Now it's hard to tell, right? So you'd have to do what I call fishing. You have to put out a few designs, see if you get likes and favorites, put out another few designs, see if you get likes and favorites. And if you don't get any likes or favorites after a while, maybe go on to another type of design. It is kind of an experimental medium. You're not going to know in advance. But I will say there's lots and lots on Creative Fabrica in terms of variety. And if you look and you sub-niche down into the types of digital downloads, you may find there's not much competition in some of the niches. Now, I can't tell you how much demand there is, but I could certainly say based on the amount of responses when you search for something, you might not get back very much at all. So I do this with keywords. I'll type in what I think is a decent keyword, and if I get back like 300 results, that might be a niche that I could pound out a few different designs in there. If I type in the keyword and I get back 40,000, 80,000, 250,000, well then that's probably a filled up niche and I would want to move on to something else. So you really want to look for keywords and niches to be in your favor. And if they aren't, it doesn't matter how much you love it. You may want to start somewhere else. And the combination of these 3 things, having a lot of designs, having high quality designs, and having keywords/niches that work in your favor, meaning they're relatively high demand and relatively low competition, that can really be the formula for you to succeed long term. And I say long term on Creative Fabrica. I really hope you found this podcast helpful. If you did, feel free to hit that like and subscribe. Thanks for making it all the way to the end with me. I'd love to hear your comments and your questions as well. I do my best to read them and try to respond to them. Maybe it'll give me an idea for another podcast. If you found this helpful, I say thank you. I believe in you. Go forth and create and have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot.